I just want to tell you that we have 10 persons. They are families of victims from Gaza, and some of them are victims from Gaza itself. We are very honored and privileged that we were able to bring them to the United Nations. We had a very busy day today with them. The first meeting was with the Secretary General of the United Nations. It was a moving encounter with him. Then the second meeting was with the President, with the members of the Security Council at the PR level. All of them were there, and it was very, very moving testimony that brought crying to many members of the Security Council and others. And we just finished a meeting called for by the Arab group, by the OIC, NAM, and the Committee on the Exercise of the Inalienable Rights of the Palestinian People, in which some of you had the opportunity to listen to their testimonies, and we thought that it would be appropriate to give you the opportunity to maybe ask questions. We will have 3 of them that will address you. The first one is Dr. Imad Al-Tamimi, who just came back from the European hospital from Gaza to share some of his observations there. We will have also Dr. Al-Farra, whom she lost about 150 of her extended family, mainly in the Khan Yunis area, to share with you some of her experiences and the situation of her family. And then there is a young lady, Tali, who just arrived recently here, and she lost many members of her family, and her sister is being treated in a hospital in New Jersey. She will speak to you. She most likely will speak in Arabic, and we have Majid that will provide the translation to English. So those are the 3 people. I hope that we can cover the grounds in about 15 minutes, because after that, they have the last function for them, not the last function, the next function, to meet with the European Union. So I have the doctor. Do you want to ask him a question, or he can tell you his observations? Okay, Faddal.
Hello, everybody. I'm going to make mine very short. I'm a maxillofacial surgeon. Lived in the state. I volunteered in a lot of missions. So I joined a mission recently to the European hospital in Gaza. I stayed there for 2 weeks. We lived at the hospital. We treated a lot of patients. We, as a group, we treated more than 200 patients. Myself, I treated 16 surgeries. It's not the surgeries you've done, it's the amount of displaced people and the active refugee camp that I lived in. People live in the tents, live in the floor, live in the wards, in more unhygienic way, below optimum level of medical treatments. We were able to do a lot of work. If anything, that they were asking us to just relay a message of ceasefires. We lived at the hospital. We heard bombing every day. We heard air jets, fireworks. Patients came to the ER every day. We treated them. We lost a lot of patients. I'm not here to talk about the loss as much as my other colleagues here that could talk about this. I see it daily. I saw it daily. I lived it daily. It touched me so much psychologically and humanistically. But what I want to say finally here, so they could come in here, it's tragic. I've been in different missions. This was for the most terrible and horrific that I've seen in my life. And I bleed the humanity of each one of us to do something to stop this. You guys heard it in TVs and everything, but honestly, we lived every single day for 13 days in Gaza, and it wasn't easy. You saw all what you're gonna hear this. I saw it in my eyes, and I've treated patients, and I cried every single day. And thank God that I came back here to at least be their voice, not my voice, their voice. God bless, and hope I let the floor for the rest.
Thank you very much, Doctor. This young lady is going to speak to you in Arabic. She doesn't need translation because we have plenty of media in Arabic that can cover her, and if you provide the translation, share it with your colleagues. Siham, تفضلي.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أنا سهام بسيسو، عمري 19 سنة، فلسطينية غزاوية الأصل. أنا هان علشان أحكي قصتي اللي صارت معايا في اليوم ال65 من الحرب. أنا هان صوت من أصوات الملايين اللي بيعانوا لحتى الآن في غزة، صوت من أصوات الحق اللي لازم تنسمع بهذا العالم. في اليوم ال65 من الحرب، يوم الخميس الساعة 4 العصر، نزل صاروخ على بيت تاتا، لأنه إحنا اضطرينا من أول يوم في الحرب إنه ننزح من بيتنا. رحنا على بيت تاتا. في اليوم ال65 نزل صاروخ على البيت، وعلى إثره استشهد أخويا أحمد عمره 16 سنة دغري. اتصابت أختي سارة 17 سنة، وتصاب أخويا محمد عمره 8 سنين. بعد 4 أيام من الإصابة استشهد حمود في البيت، لأنه إحنا ما كنا قادرين نطلع أو نوديه على أي مكان، مستشفى، مستوصف، أي عيادة طبية تستقبله. ما كنا قادرين نوفر له أي دواء، أي مكان، أي شيء معقم إنه نقدر نستخدمه. ضلينا في البيت المقصوف، ضلينا في البيت اللي كله ميكروبات أثر الصاروخ اللي نزل، وضل حمود وسارة بيعانوا. بعد 4 أيام حمود استشهد. بعد 4 أيام حمود استشهد بعد من كون ما ياخد ولا أي دواء. اضطرينا ندفنه هو وأحمد في البيت في الجنينة، لأنه إحنا ما بنقدر نطلع. اللي بيطلع أو بيطلع صوت أو بدوي أي ضوء بنقصف. ضلنا نتعامل طول الشهرين اللي ضلينا فيهم أنا بغزة، أنا وأختي سارة، إنه إحنا مش موجودين في البيت. بعد شهرين بدون ما تتلقى سارة أي علاج، قدرنا إنه نطلع من الشمال للجنوب، وبعدها طلعنا على مصر. الطريق كانت صعبة ونوصفها بدها وقت علشان أقدر أحكي لكم المعاناة اللي إحنا بنعانيها. أنا أهلي لسه هناك، أهلي لسه بيعانوا، ما بقدر أتواصل معهم، ما بعرف عنهم أي إشي. لو بقدر إني أطلعهم، بقدر إني أعرف عنهم أي خبر، عايشين مش عايشين، بس الأكيد إن هم مش ملاقيين أكل، مش ملاقيين أي إشي يقوم الحياة لإلهم. مقومات الحياة صفر، لا مي ولا كهرباء ولا إنترنت من أول يوم. كنا محاصرين لأكثر من مدة. قبل الهدنة ما تصير إحنا تحاصرنا، وبعد الهدنة صارت إحنا تحاصرنا تاني وانقصفنا بعد ما صارت الهدنة. هلا أختي سارة في نورث ويل في ستاتن آيلاند عم تتعالج بعد ما انحرقت أكثر 70% من جسمها. اضطرت امبارح إنها تستأصل جزء من أطرافها لأنها كانت نكروسز. جزء من أصابعها انقصت. بنت عمرها 17 سنة، كانت توجيهي، كانت بتحلم إنها تكون دكتورة. اضطروا يقصوا جزء من أصابعها، انحرق كل جسمها، وجهها، إيديها، رجليها، ظهرها، كل جزء بجسمها انحرق. وضلت أكثر من شهرين في البيت، ولا أي دواء ولا أي مكان قادر يستقبلها، لأنه أصلا ما في مستشفيات وما في دكاترة. كله نزح على الجنوب، وإحنا ضلينا من الصامدين في بيوتنا أهل الشمال. هلا أنا وسارة أختي في أمريكا، بس الباقي وين؟ باقي أهلي في غزة لسه عم بيعانوا وما بعرف عنهم أي إشي. أنا قدرت إني أطلع، بس هم ما قدروا يطلعوا. لو بقدر أعرف عنهم إشي كان حكيت، بس ما بعرف. أختي سارة هلأ في نورث ويل عم تتعالج، إلنا شهر إحنا وصلنا هون. إن شاء الله بتقدر توقف على رجليها تاني، وبتقدر تحكي معكم وتحكي لكم قصتها اللي صارت معها. أنا سهام بسيسو، بنت غزة.
شكرا. دكتورة رولا الفرة، تفضلي.
Thank you. My name is Dr. Rula El-Farr. I'm a Palestinian-American physician from Houston, Texas. My father was born in Khan Yunis and my mother in the city of Gaza. The Al-Farra family is one of the largest families in Khan Yunis with over 12,000 family members, and we have been living in Gaza for centuries. Since the 7th of October, my family members, over 150 of them, have been murdered by Israel's brutal assault on Gaza, either by Israeli bombardment, snipers, or the cruel and ruthless denial of humanitarian aid, with no access to clean water, with food, equitable healthcare services. Thousands more have been tormented with horrific injuries, forced starvation, trauma and displacement to evacuation camps, and catastrophic living conditions. It is difficult to express this agony in just a few minutes, but I will share some stories with you. First, there have been multiple violent, multi-generational massacres of family units in the Al-Farra family. In late October, two brothers, Aziz and Hatem, for example, were sheltering with their families, their wives and their children. Their home was hit by an Israeli airstrike. The entire family, 14 family members, were killed. They were survived by 10-year-old Hamza. Hamza was taken to a nearby hospital. He was operated on. Here's a picture of Hamza and his two siblings. His two siblings, young siblings, had died during this massacre. Hamza was operated on. He spent a few days in agonizing pain due to shortages of pain medication. He was crying incessantly for his parents, who were deceased, and his siblings. Hamza succumbed to his injuries just a few days later. Second, there's been relentless, indiscriminate bombing of Gaza that has destroyed the homes of virtually all of my family members. They've been displaced to Rafah to live in camps and homes that are overcrowded and in the worst inhumane conditions. In December, one of our family members, Rula El-Farr, was murdered in his home by an Israeli airstrike with his 9 young children. His unfortunate wife survived. She was 8 months pregnant. She was displaced to an evacuation camp where she gave birth to her baby boy 1 month later in January, whom she named after her deceased husband. She gave birth with no electricity, with no clean water, with no access to any medical care. Her child, her newborn infant, died 20 days later from the cold and the harsh conditions in the camps. Third, the plight of women and children in Gaza is immeasurable, it's catastrophic. I've had a relative who put a Facebook message stating that a woman down the street from her had just given birth to her newborn baby on the rubble of her destroyed home, and asking if anyone else in the family could help her with supplies and clothing for the newborn. There is a viral post of my cousin, the beautiful 6-year-old Sana Al-Farra. Here she is. This went viral because she was murdered in her home by an Israeli airstrike. Here she is in her princess dress, which of course many of you could relate to because many of you may have daughters with pictures of in their princess dress. These are my 2 daughters who were born in Houston, Texas. I ask you how they are any different and why Sana had to be subjected to such horror. Fourth, we've been subjected to the most inhumane denial of access to basic humanitarian needs. Families have texted that we've been sleeping without food for more than 24 hours at a time. They have not seen flour, meat, vegetables, fruits for 5 months now. They are using an animal feed for bread. Water is recycled. We've had a family who was contaminated with hepatitis A last week from unclean water. My cousin, 12-year-old Abdurrahim Al-Farra, who was evacuated to a camp, was walking to the restroom, the only restroom available to thousands of people in the camp, with his grandfather when he was hit by an Israeli missile. He was taken by ambulance, but there was no hospital that was functional near enough to save him. So he died from the inability to access medical care. My other cousin in her 30s, who suffers from chronic kidney disease, died because she could not access her dialysis treatments. So I would like to point to you, finally, the severe and unfathomable psychological and emotional trauma that the family has been subjected to. Children have been orphaned, parents have lost all of their children. I have cousins who have texted that they've witnessed their mothers' dead bodies half buried in the rubble, their sisters shredded to pieces, and family members have lost sight of their children and other family members and have no way of communicating or knowing if they're okay. So finally, I would like to say that just 3 days ago, our first cousin, Suhaib Hussam Al-Farra, and his family, 16 people were massacred in Rafah in the home that they had escaped to. 2 weeks ago in the United Nations, there was a critical opportunity to call for a ceasefire that could have saved the lives. This week alone, we've lost 20 family members to the brutal murder of this brutal assault from Israel. So we ask, every single minute counts, Every single minute signifies the death and destruction and agony of our people. We ask for a permanent ceasefire and a permanent solution to the people of Palestine so that we may preserve our dignity and be ensured our rights to self-discrimination, freedom, and justice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Rula El-Farr. As you see, also I want to thank my colleagues who are ambassadors from the League of Arab States and the OIC who have joined us. I want to thank the 10 Palestinians with families and stories from the Gaza Strip for sharing with you their stories. I'm so proud of them. They're making us taller, and they're making the people of Gaza and their stories alive in front of everyone and each and every one of you. Please tell their story in details. It is your duty to convey their stories to everyone. We will have 2 questions from this side. If the ladies want to ask a question, we will give the ladies, because they need to run to their next functions. Talal, then Abdul Hamid, and one of the ladies. Okay. Or 2 ladies. Okay.
Talal Haj from Al-Arabiya and Hadath Networks. My question is to the families. We, of course, as journalists, will do our bit, but of course the decision is in the hand of the governments, and the ambassadors can affect them. When you met with the ambassadors, how did you feel the impact of your stories, which brought the tears to many of us? And we are men, we are not women. We pride ourselves in not crying. How was the impact on the ambassadors that you met from the Security Council, and in particular the US ambassador? Because the others are all, the E10, the other 4 permanent members, they're all for a ceasefire. How was the impact, and how was the impact on the Secretary General himself when you met him? Thank you.
Well, before I give Dr. Rola to respond to it, there were a number of men ambassadors who cried too, not only women. Including me, yes.
We are grateful for this opportunity for our voices to be heard. Living in this country as an American citizen, we often feel like ghosts, that we are not heard. And today, we were welcomed by Security Council members who were clearly moved, including our American ambassador, by the stories that we shared. I think we were heard, and I think it's important that all of us have shared our stories. The disconnect is always the powerlessness that seems to be communicated. We understand, but again, today none of us are here for condolences. We're not here for apologies. We're here for immediate action. We have demonstrated that every minute signifies the loss of a life, the starvation of a child, and so we need an immediate and permanent, not temporary, permanent ceasefire now.
Abdul Hamid.
Thank you.
Secretary General.
The Secretary General conveyed to us that he is very much empathetic and understands the suffering of the Palestinian people, and that he has tried everything in his ability. And we do appreciate that, but our message is that it hasn't been enough, and more needs to be done so that we can save our beloved people of Palestine.
Thank you. Abdul Hamid Siyam from the Arabic daily Al-Quds Al-Arabi. I was a former UN staff myself. Thank you, Ambassador Riyad, for organizing this, and thank all the ambassadors here. I have a few questions to Dr. Tamimi. There's so much a campaign of distortion and deception. You've been an eyewitness there. Can you tell us about the bombardment of the Baptist hospital, which the Palestinians accused of killing themselves? And the second distortion about the Shifa hospital and claiming there is a control and command leadership for the resistance under the hospital. And there also a campaign against every hospital that is shielding and hiding resistance people in those hospitals. Could you address these allegations? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's actually a very important question. I have to attest to what I saw and what I lived. I stayed at the southern part of Gaza. I was at European Hospital. It's, if everybody knows, it's in Khan Yunis and Rafah at the corner. So I could talk about what I saw there. We were not allowed to leave the premises of the hospitals. Honestly, it was a volatile strategic things. But we saw the influx of people that's coming to this. Of course, there's always a claim that there is, I'm not going to. There's a lot of things that it requires for them to go in there. I haven't seen it. I did not see it. All I see is just people that were suffering. Patients were suffering of what Dr. Rula was saying exactly. So all the claims that it's been said that there is something in those hospitals. All what I could attest for this, it's a genocide. They were targeting physicians, that's for sure. So we can't treat those patients that's been suffered. Those patients have had suffering and hand incapacitating injuries, lost their eyes, lost their limbs, everything. And if we can't help them as physicians, they were dying. Or if they live, they're going to be incapacitated or handicapped. The hospitals that I was in there, it was under a warning that it might be attacked. I've had a lot of physicians come from Shifa hospitals, volunteer with no pay for more than 3 months. They came from Al-Shifa, they came from Hamadani. We all gathered there and we heard so many stories how they made it all the way there. Everybody volunteered to treat patients. We were operating 24 hours. I had to do a couple more surgeries all the way to 3 o'clock in the morning. So I disclaim that claim that there is something that's happening in those hospitals. I did not see any.
Thank you very much. Let's have one question from the woman, and I've been asked, that we need to move. That's the last question, please.
Question.
Short.
It's a follow-up regarding the exchange with the U.S. ambassador. I'm Bisana Bakwik with Al Jazeera Arabic. I mean, did you have any hope, having her listening to your testimonies, that something might be close, that a push might happen since we have that draft resolution?
My sense was that our mission today was to be able to send a strong message, and I do believe that we did communicate that message. We did sense that there was great empathy and understanding to what's happening. Hopefully, that will be effectively communicated to leadership, and then we'll see some change and impact.
Thank you very much. Their message was clear and strong for a ceasefire among the members of the Security Council, the SG, and everyone else. I want to thank the team of the observer mission of the State of Palestine to the UN, especially Fida, who was remarkable in putting all this together. I just want to acknowledge her in front of all of you. Thank you very much.